Full moons don't ask for permission. They reveal, they illuminate, and they pull to the surface everything that you've been carrying quietly. The patterns that you name but haven't resolved. The version of yourself you keep almost becoming. And this one, Aquarius full moon, this is the one that asks you to stop waiting for the collective to catch up who you already are. Aquarius rules the visionary, the one who sees differently, the one whose gifts has always felt slightly ahead of its time, and who, if she's honest, has sometimes used that ahead of its time as an story of permission to stay invisible. By the way, when I say she, is also he. This moon is a mirror, not a gentle one. It is asking, what are you protecting by staying ahead in your mind, but behind in your life? Today, we're going into that. What this full moon is activating in your emotional blueprint, what it's likely hitting your nervous system, and what's actually asking you to release, no spiritually bypass, release. So, let's go. So welcome. My name is Monica. I'm an quantum astrologer and a holistic coach. And in this episode, we don't just talk about astrology or what is happening in the cosmos. We are really breaking down how this astrology, this cosmos, can be opening opportunities for us to decode all patterns, all programming, to actually redecode what programming that actually serve us, and how can we use the energies to actually accelerate our evolution instead of just walking step by step. We start to doing quantum leaps. So if you're new here, welcome to this podcast. If you've been already here before, thank you so much for joining again. It's lovely to see you again. And today we're going to be talking about the full moon in Aquarius, happening on the 29th of July 2026. Full moons are a time to release anything that is no longer serving you. So that's why we're saying release. No bypass, no spiritual bypass, release. And for this, we're going to be unfolding all the things that have been happening since the end of July until the full moon. I'm recording this on the 24th of July. Just today, we have a very interesting alignment. I'm going to put in the screen now so you can see it. And you may see how we have this trine between the moon, between Neptune, and the sun with Jupiter in conjunction. This is a fire trine that is going to be preparing for the full moon that we're going to be talking in a minute. But I wanted to start today from here because this is just a build up for what is going to be happening in August as well. But maybe you've been listening to previous episodes before, and I've been saying, how we've been through this hero journey of finding ourselves, connecting with a higher version of ourselves, an identity, changing identities for an identity that's a lot of more aligned with our souls and who we truly are authentically. Maybe you even been finding more purpose, more alignment, more direction in your life. So the end of July is not going to be less than that. This is going to be the peak of what you may be experiencing already, if any of this is been resonating already. And this trine, which is a fire trine, is gonna provide with a lot of courage, with the exploration. We have the moon in Sagittarius right now. And this moon in Sagittarius is a very exploring energy, wants to try new things, wants to discover new things, right? And then Neptune is in Aries. So Aries is that actionable energy that gives us direction, give us purpose, and give us the drive, the strength to initiate things. And as Neptune is in Aries, it may mean that you have a lot of more actionable visions, actionable dreams. You may receive in meditation or while you are asleep or even while you're daydreaming, visions in your imagination, in your third eye of the things that they may be happening next in your life. And with the Aries energy, it's gonna help you, it's gonna encourage you, it's gonna push you from the back so you do it. It's gonna give you that strength to initiate anything that has been in your mind, in your third eye, or in your imagination, or even in your dreams, if you are a person who tends to dream a lot at night, meaning. At the same time, we have the Sun in conjunction with Jupiter in Leo. And Jupiter in Leo is already giving that strength for invention, for discovery. It's an amplification also of our Sun in Leo. So the Sun is the identity. Leo gives inner strength, confidence, bravery, courage, connection with your heart leadership. So that it's an energy that is being cultivated right now as we speak. And that's going to be giving that push and preparation for the full moon. At the same time, today, 24th of July, doesn't matter when you're listening to this, the important is that you understand what is the build up of the energy. Mercury comes back into direct. So Mercury has been retrograding, may have affected communication or even media or even like emails or any kind of communication with people. Once Mercury is direct, that's going to help to promote this energy back, so there may be less error, less mistakes, or weird things happen. So again, we are getting ready for the full moon with this. Another important event happening just before the full moon is that on the 26th of July, the nodal axis is going to move to Aquarius. So the true north node is going to move to Aquarius. I've been talking about this as well in previous episodes, why the node was in Pisces and it's been in Pisces for a bit. And now it's moving to a more collective perspective. So as I was sharing before, the North Node was in Pisces, very connected with spirituality, with meaning, that giving meaning to our lives individually, collectively. And now the North Node, which is very connected with our destiny, with a sense of purpose and direction in our life. When we do, or when I do a quantum reading, quantum astrology reading to someone, the North Node gives me a lot of information about the soul, not just about the purpose as well, where it came from, where it's coming, what was the lessons and the growth that had to happen in this lifetime before it could move to the North Node, which is the destiny and it's the goal, let's say, or the objective for this lifetime. So the South Node always shows us the things that is for us to master in order to, and it's kind of like a completion from other lives. Maybe there are lessons that you already knew, but you had to remember. Maybe there were tasks that they were to finish because they were unfinished or unresolved things from the past. And once you've done this, you just move to the next, right? Which is your real purpose on life. So sometimes in a chart, you can find out that the real purpose of a person is not even like having a work purpose, like doing anything as an occupation or doing any kind of work. Could be a relationship, could be mastering a skill. So it depends on the person. But when we are doing a collective reading, as I'm doing today, when I look at the North Node, is where we all together in the present moment are moving collectively towards. So we were coming from Pisces, which, as I mentioned, it was finding more meaning to what we were doing, not just doing things for the sake of doing, not just doing, let's say, an occupation, a job, just because, you just have to pay your bills. What we've been moving with Pisces in the North Node is to find meaning to what we are doing individually, collectively. And I believe many people have found this consciously or unconsciously in the last years, because we've been challenged in different ways and we've been put in front or faced with all the circumstances or surroundings that has made us to go inwards and ask ourselves the question, who I am and what am I doing? Why do I do what I do, right? What I came here to do in this earth or in this lifetime. So now the North Node is moving to Aquarius, which is a very collective energy. Not just that, this full moon is also in Aquarius. We have Pluto in Aquarius. So we have a lot of important planets in this energy for a reason, for a purpose. This is not just coincidence. This is just preparing us collectively and individually for what's coming next in our lives. So if we look at the energy of Aquarius, Aquarius is futuristic. It's a energy that it has a vision. It's a visionary. It can see ahead of its time what could happen, what it's moving. It's very innovating energy and very revolutionary and even rebellious, because Uranus is the regent of Aquarius. It's one of the regents. Actually, Aquarius have two regents. The first one and the most traditional one was Saturn, but then when they discovered Uranus, they added Uranus then. All right, so to understand, we have some people are to believe or have the belief that when the nodal axis is, let's say, in this case, the North Node is in Aquarius and the South Node it's in Leo, some people believe that you have to completely let go the energy of Leo. I don't personally believe that. I think that could be quite personal, but I don't consider that the purpose of the North Node and the South Node. What I consider here is what can you integrate from the South Node, from the lessons that you may be been having in the last months and years, and what are you ready to take on for your collective sharing, for your collective projects. And this is exactly what Aquarius is bringing in this space. Now, let's observe the South Node. The South Node is in Leo. And Leo, in the shadows, can bring narcissistic traits, can bring the entitlements, can bring the pride and the ego as well. More and more people have been faced with this in the last years, maybe in situations, maybe in relationships, maybe in work commitments where you've been recognizing different narcissistic traits, for example, or entitlement. And highly probable, if you're listening to this podcast, you've been learning from that, from what is a healthy relationship with yourself and with other people, what is a more conscious way of relating with others in any of the environments. And what can we take with us to find this middle point when we create or we find this equilibrium or balance when we are sharing collectively with others, co-creating with others. I believe this is the real takeaway from the South Node. And obviously, everyone independently is being experiencing depending on the soul purposes, but we all collectively have a minimum sharing all together. Being very integral with our values is going to be very helpful as well in order to move into this North Node in Aquarius. So the real question that the North Node in Aquarius right now may be asking to all of us is, what can I take from my previous seasons, previous lessons on growth to create my new reality and to co-create with others collectively in a more humanitarian way? Because Aquarius is very connected with humanitarian projects, collective projects. What are the aspects from the South Node that I can take with me to the next level or the next chapter of my life? For example, in the light, Leo has that capacity of sovereignty, of leading with the heart, not just with the ego, of being able to be courageous and having the inner strength and the bravery to do the steps and action, these things that may be scary, and really connected and listen to the heart. Also, it has the warmth and the genuine connection when you connect with a Leo, especially when it's a Leo who has worked in himself or herself, And it's that genuine connection from a very authentic place, because Leo is also connected with authenticity, with playfulness, with joy. So how can we also take this to the next chapter into a more sharing, collective sharing with others, and co-create new projects with others? So now that we explained that, let's move on into a full moon that now is going to be showing here in the screen. If you are listening to this, you can always go into YouTube after that and watching the video. In the videos in Spotify and YouTube, I always share the video with the chart. But if you're listening to this, don't worry, I'm gonna be explaining step by step all the alignments for this full moon. So one of the things that is quite interesting of this alignment of Pluto in Aquarius, Jupiter in Leo, approximately at 4 degrees, is, and I mentioned that in the previous episode, is that we have in 1978, we had the French Revolution. And it's interesting because when Jupiter is in Leo, there is this synchronicity that new things are discovered. Previous to that, in 1608 and 1609, it was discovered the telescope, Aquarius, which is connected and rules technology and the internet, and also Jupiter and Leo, which amplify and expands all this technology or internet. Having said that, we're seeing major progresses in the AI industries and all related with digital. And it won't be a surprise if during this time, more and more discoveries and developments are happening during this time that we have Pluto in Aquarius and Jupiter in Leo. At the same time, we have the full moon, right? And the full moon is when the sun is in opposite to the moon. So moon is in Aquarius, sun is in Leo. And sun and Jupiter are conjuncting right now. The sun is very connected with our identity. As I mentioned earlier, as it is in Leo, it's very connected with our heart leadership, right? With generosity, with warmth. Also, an aspect to mention here, and especially if you are a Leo or you have a lot of influence of Leo in your chart, that, by the way, you can always go to astro.com, insert your date of birth and the time where you were born and the location where you were born. You can see the chart there. But Leos, they have this thing, right, that they love attention. But in the evolutionary astrology, when a Leo is able to get that attention from themselves, they are able to see themselves and don't seek attention, validation, or being seen by others. That is where the real growth happens for them, and they also find their own value on that. So that can be also be appearing for all of us, because we all have the influence of Leo in our charts, as you can just see it, right? We have actually the influence of the 12 signs. And when these placements are in the cosmos, in the time that we're talking, in the present moment, they are just opportunities that they open for us also to evolve together, especially where the house is. So where the planet is, in what house is, that's going to indicate you what aspect in your life that's going to be more reflected. Also where the sun is in your chart, because the sun rules Leo. So explain this, I want to also point here that it may happen that we go through a period of polarity, finding polarity. Also, there could be controversial opinions. And as I always say, I will never say don't watch the news, but just being conscious of what this content may affect to your nervous system. Because obviously the energy, the frequency of sometimes the news or the topics that they are told in this kind of media, they are not the best for your nervous system. They can affect your nervous system. So depending what is your nervous system regulation at that stage, I always say this, be aware of that. Because this time with Pluto and the moon in Aquarius could bring a lot of transformational emotional change, because Pluto, it's all about transformation. And when it's in conjuncting with the moon, which is all about emotions, the most emotional side of us is the moon. Also is our regulation, the emotional regulation and nervous system regulation is very connected with our moon too. But as it is in Aquarius, there is a positive side that Aquarius could be quite detached in the emotions and can look at the perspective, or let's say the reality that is looking at, from a more objective point of view, as Aquarius allows to detach a bit and to see from far, so we don't get too attached. So that could be a benefit, something that we can all benefit from, because it's allowing us to see the perspectives that we're looking at with the lenses of objectivity, which I think is one of the most important things when we are making decisions, trying to be objective. At the same time, this Pluto conjuncting with the moon could bring a sense of purpose and direction in our lives. That could be, as I mentioned in the beginning of this episode, being built up in the last months already, with always been happening around you, maybe internally what you've been through. That could be now the peak, or almost the peak. Once we get into the eclipse next month, could be the breakthrough completely of where you're going ahead. But I was sharing this since many months ago. Probably it was March or so, when I was saying already these changes happening, and it's unavoidable to see that we are all collectively finding a new versions of us. So another alignment for this full moon is Neptune is in Aries, as I was saying earlier, with the trine, the fire trine happening on the 24th of July. This is actionable visions. So visions, ideas that come to your mind through imagination, through your third eye. And actually, Aries is going to help you to action as soon as possible, if it's not immediately. But there is just one thing here, that Saturn is also in Aries. When Saturn is in Aries, there is this kind of like two forces that goes against each other, because Aries is all about action, but Saturn is about the fears, the insecurity, the self-doubt. So it could be like, I want to action the vision, but Saturn could freeze you or get you into fight, flight, or freeze, right? And there is no action there. So what can we do here is to find the sweet spot in the balance. When we find the sweet spot in the balance, especially when people are born with Saturn in Aries, this is what they have to do. It's learn to find the sweet spot in the balance between action and inaction. And once that happens, what happens is that you get very determined action, persistent energy, which means that it takes you far because you find the balance between not doing anything and doing everything almost impulsively, which is the shadow of Aries, could be quite impulsive. But when we are in the balance between both, we are in persistent, consistent, determined. I know where I'm going. I find that consistent movement. On the top of that, we have Saturn in Aries, which is in a square with Mercury that now is direct. So that could be also reflected in our communication. So the inaction or action in how we communicate, maybe our needs, maybe our desires, maybe our objectives. I always say this, one of the first steps in manifestation is to get clear in what you want. You have to get clear in what you want and what you don't want, what you tolerate and what you don't tolerate, right? And for this, you have to ask it clearly, put it there, and get into that direction. And obviously there is more steps after this. It's not just that, but this is the first very beginning of manifestation. It starts with Aries, getting the direction, knowing where we're going. So communication, assertiveness in what you want to. When we get into aggressive or passive aggressive, is mostly when it's passive aggressive, is when we don't really share what we want. We're not being clear in our desires, in our needs in that moment. And when I say needs, it's more like from an emotional needs, not from an ego needs. And so, having said that, get into this sweet point where you know where you go with determination, with persistent and consistent energy. That is lesson with Saturn in there. The other thing is Chiron in Taurus. I've been talking about this. Highly recommend you to go back into the previous episodes because I developed about Chiron in Taurus a lot in June when actually Chiron got into Taurus. But just to briefly share with all of you is healing of the Mother Earth, healing with self-worth and values and our self-worth and values, and the connection with your body, the relationship that you have with your body. This is things that can be brought up right now as we speak, because this is Chiron is the wounded healer in Taurus. Taurus is ruling all YSM, especially the connection with Mother Earth, healing of Mother Earth, that connection. Like appreciating the abundance that is around us. Sometimes we just so focused maybe in a goal, in something physical, material, and we don't even stop and appreciate all the abundance that we already have around us. Starting from the simple act of having oxygen that we can breathe, having the plants around us and caring about the plants that actually give us this oxygen for us to breathe. The ground, so connection, barefoot connection with Mother Earth, that's going to be so healing and empowering and giving you a lot of energy for this time. Another thing that is quite interesting is that we have the Moon and Pluto plus the Sun in Jupiter in trine, which is an harmonious instruction, with Uranus in Gemini. Uranus in Gemini is about innovation, revolution, and rebellion, even in communication and media. So on the top of all what I have just mentioned, this could be also an innovation in social media, in the media in general, in the communication with us inclusive. Another alignment here is Mars in Gemini. Mars in Gemini, which is in a square on the top of that with Venus in Virgo. So let me unpack this. So we have Mars in Gemini, which is all the action connected with communication. So could be even overactive in the shadow, aggressive, or even show up or bring up any kind of rage. So highly recommended in here if that's something that maybe you have a lot of Aries energy or Mars is quite active in your chart right now. If that is something that you're experiencing in the way that you're communicating, highly recommended to practice mindfulness here and connection with the body. So grounding, getting out from the mind, because Gemini, it's very connected with our mind. It's connected with our communication, but this fast communication that sometimes is faster than what we can even process or prepare to. So quite important. Also, it could be connected with active occupations or work tasks, because Mars is connected with our actions, work related, even purpose, work action. And Gemini, it's a very fast changing energy. It's like I get bored and I move to the next, and I want to get involved in everything. That is Gemini. Gemini, it's excellent for multitasking. As an energy, it moves into a lot of things and like learning different things, in the work side or occupation side or more professional side. That could appear too. Like you want to try new things, you want to learn different things, and that's gonna promote that energy. And as I said, it's in a square, which is not an harmonious instruction, with Venus in Virgo. Venus in Virgo, it's very critical tendency. It can be quite practical, will be quite critical sometimes, even with the tendency of perfectionism. Venus is related to relationships. So pay attention to the relationships where you may be a bit too critical sometimes, or even like quite perfectionist could come up. Could be with any kind of relationship, with yourself, with your family, with friends, partners, etc. And at the same time, Venus and Virgo have a tendency to, which could be self-criticize. They can sacrifice themselves into caring of others, but especially caring of maybe elderly ones or family. So not saying that no, don't do that. It's about where can I find balance between caring about myself and also doing self-care practices and also caring for others. And another thing that is very interesting, when Venus is in Virgo and the Sun at the same time is in Leo, which is what is happening right now, it's a very interesting combination, because Leo, it's all about the sovereignty tendency, right? Like be the sovereign energy in yourself, or having the sovereign energy in yourself emerged with critical tendencies. Could marry up very well together. Can be reflected as discernment from a sovereign place. Releasing the critic, it's about being able to discern without having to get into judgment of others or critical point of others. But I have to say that these two energies, which is Sun in Leo and Venus in Virgo, could have a quite challenging clash with the extravagant energy of Leo and the modest side of Virgo. As I always say, it's about really finding the balance, not saying like what is right, what is wrong. It's not about picking up just one side of the stick. It's about how can I find a conscious balance? What can I do with showing up in my life, and I can integrate the light of both sides. And one more thing that I want to talk, because since I started this podcast episode, I haven't mentioned it yet, and I find it really interesting that it's the Lilith is in Sagittarius, connected with the rebel side of us. It's like our teenager who used to be a rebel. So if you remember the moments of your life when you were like, I'm against rules and whatever authorities have just said I have to do because it was what I had to do. So this is the energy of Lilith. Lilith is connected with this teenager who is creating its own inner authority and sovereignty too. It's gonna be rebellious energy, and it's gonna be rebellious against dogmas, against rules, against beliefs that can be imposed in the oneself or in society in general. And as it is in Sagittarius, Sagittarius is all connected with faith, with religion, with spirituality itself, with travels and trips. Could be even related with any kind of beliefs, such as scientific beliefs, so that is gonna be also very interesting energy that we've been experiencing since a few months ago, and that's gonna be changing until the 14th of September of 2026, which is mostly in 1 month and a half, because now we are in the end of July. So I just wanted to mention, because then it's gonna move into Capricorn, and as we have, let's say, we are in the just wrap up. We're just in the last weeks of Lilith in Sagittarius. Is also connected with shame and with rage, these two emotions. So it's something interesting to look at in your chart. What is Lilith? And another thing is, what is Sagittarius in your chart? Because that is also where could be right now activated. And as this is the last weeks, like month and a half, it's also good time to start to review what have you been going through in the last months, what you've been through, because Lilith takes 9 months to change signs. So it's been already for 7.5 months in Sagittarius, and pretty sure consciously or unconsciously you've been through things already. And when you are conscious about it, that's why I love astrology, because when I'm conscious about it, I can even focus even more. I can understand, oh shit, that's why I've been through all what I've been through in the last months, or right now I'm going through what I'm going through. It's because these planets are active, and these planets are trying to teach me X, Y, and Z. And when we are aware, we're able to use it in advantage and proactively start to pay attention to the lessons, and use it in advantage. Because for me, astrology is portals that are open, but it's on us to walk through these portals. So that was all for today, and I hope this episode gave you something real to work with. And if you felt something shift while listening, and if something in your chart, your patterns, or your emotional blueprint is calling to be looked at more deeply, that's not a coincidence. That is your soul saying it is time. You can book a quantum astrology session with me through the link in the description. And I want to be clear about what is this, because this is not just a standard astrology reading where I tell you what sign you are and sending you home. Your chart is not a personality map. It is an energetic blueprint of your soul. And when we read together, we're not just identifying what's there, we're decoding the patterns, the codes, the places where you've been running old programming without knowing it. And then we recode it using quantum work, NLP, energy healing, hypnosis, whatever your system needs in that sessions to actually shift. And this is why I call it quantum, because we don't just read the energy, we work with it. And if that is calling you, the link is in the description. I would love to see your chart. And as always, thank you so much for being here. Genuinely drop your insights in the comments. I read every single one. And if this episode landed for you, share it with one person who needs to hear it right now. Hit subscribe and the bell so you don't miss the next one. And I will see you in the next one. Shanti.